beautiful clips. Good afternoon, everybody. Sisters, brothers, and siblings. My name is Carrington. Before I introduce Pastor Turner, I want to mention at AFRAM yesterday, I'm not sure if y'all have seen this, but there was a moment of the celebration of Juneteenth and liberation and Black music, Black culture, and all that. There was a moment nearing the end of AFRAM in the last couple hours where the police chased and brutally apprehended this young man, and were very hostile towards the crowd, shoving people, pushing people. This was perpetrated by the Group Violence Reduction Unit, the same unit that's responsible for the killing spree across Baltimore City, and the deaths of Bilal Abdullah, Dwight Hawkins, and countless other Black men in the city. So connecting that to Cuba and the reparations, it shows that our enemy is always working against us. Pastor Turner, one thing that he says is we can't stop moving because our enemies don't stop moving. The day Black people won the right to vote, our enemies kept moving to get rid of that, and we see the repercussions of that today. The day Black people have seen any advancements, our enemies have kept moving to do what they can to return us to slavery, to return us into bondage and things. And Cuba and that the socialist cause has shown that they can be defeated through solidarity and through power, and connecting that with the Reparations March. That's exactly what Pastor Turner is demanding. He's demanding across the nation, across the anywhere that has benefited from the transatlantic slave trade of Africans and then those that were born in the U.S. The reparations for the massive harm caused to a people that spans across the nation, across the earth, and the ways that we can, as individuals, as institutions, as in systems of government as well, can apply certain means to achieving reparations and healing the damage done. And that healing is important because if the U.S. is able to, or somehow Black people find reparations, whether however it's earned, given, not gotten, once it's in the hands of, that changes the whole sphere and scope of the political power in the U.S. Oppression can exist for Black people if Malcolm X said the knife is removed from the body, and we can be healed to our full potential. And Pastor Turner embodies that entirely. He's marched 45 times, 40 times from Baltimore to D.C. Yeah, please. A round of applause for that. Over 1,200, really close to 2,000, if not more, steps alone. Yeah. So 1911 steps. In the name of reparations, he survived being hit by cars, threatened, assaulted, attacked. Everything under the sun has happened to Pastor Turner, and he has kept moving because, like he said, our enemies don't stop, so we can't. And with that, Pastor Turner of Empowerment.
Appreciate you, Carrington. We want to really say how much we appreciate you, Carrington, for the many walks that you've joined on, and I thank God, see Corey and some others who walk with us. I want to thank God my family who's here as well. This is a remarkable day and event whereby you have really three major revolutionary events tied into one program. We have the Soweto remembrance of their rebellion, right? Where you had young students who chose to not learn from their oppressors, but instead fight their oppressors. The Bible, this book I read, it teaches us to flee from your oppressors and choose none of their ways, right? And these students, believe in 1976, chose to do just that in South Africa. Reminds me of a young student in Virginia, Farmville. Some of you may have heard of her. Her name is Barbara Johns. Carrington, we were there a few months ago walking on the anniversary date of her and her entire student body at Robert Russo Moulton High School. in Farmville, Virginia. And before social media, before there was any cell phones, she, the 16-year-old girl, in the face of the school's administration, influenced the entire student body to walk out of school. I mean, principals came in there, teachers came in there saying, go back to class. This young lady said, we're going home. And led a school walkout because of the subpar facilities that existed due to, at that time, the separate but equal notion that they thought, which was handed down from Plessy. They began and they were a party in the Brown versus Board of Education lawsuit, which later we know led to the integration of public schools, which was fought by Baltimore and Thurgood Marshall. So we thank God for him. So we have the Soweto Rebellion, right, of students going against, because what they were taught, they didn't believe in. The source of who they were, the source from whom they were being taught, the Africans, the colonizers, they did not agree with. And in addition to that, we have the remembrance and celebration of Juneteenth, when on June 19, 1865, Union General comes to Galveston, talks to over, they say about 250,000 enslaved people, some gathering, and informs them that they were free. Now, what he was informing them of was something called the Emancipation Proclamation, which for those of you who are historians, you know it was signed and effectuated in the law on January 1, 1863. Here we are, June 19, 1865, the enslaved getting the news. 2.5 years later. Because at the time it was written, Texas was in rebellion, succeeded from the Union, and that emancipation applied to the enslaved in states that had rebelled from the Union. But they had been free legally on paper 2.5 years. But the slave owners did not share that truth with them. It kept them in darkness so that they would not know that they actually were free. And so we have a thread, if you can see it. Now we have a thread from the students in Soweto, South Africa, to the enslaved in Galveston, Texas, in Soweto choosing to get their education from the right source, not the Africans. The enslaved not getting the information from the right source because their enslaver didn't want them to know they were free. They profited off of them being in bondage. And now, to give a recap of my trip to Cuba. I'm 43 years old. I'm probably the oldest millennial there is. I finished high school exactly in 2000. And all 43 years of my life, I've been getting news from the wrong source about Cuba. And the source that I got my news from about Cuba was all American, all imperialism, all colonizer based, where Cuba is a country that oppresses its people. Cuba was a country whose leader didn't care about his people. Cuba was a country that was lost. That was the source here in the States. They taught me that. I never in my life had a social studies teacher nor history teacher tell me any of the wonderful things that Cuba and the Cuban government, in particular, can I say his name? Fidel Castro. I never heard a social studies teacher tell me one positive thing about Fidel Castro. Not one. But a few weeks after, Brother Carrington invited me to a meeting where I believe individuals from the embassy were there, and they began to share, and I had a chance to meet some of you there. I didn't know at that meeting, a couple of weeks will pass, and I'll be contacted by the Institute of Black World president, Dr. Ron Dames, who has gone to Cuba several times, and meeting Dr. Earl. And they, wasn't because I was some, specialist in Cuban affairs. I had just gone to my first Cuban meeting a couple of weeks earlier. But they knew and respected my work as it relates to social justice, reparations for Black people. And they, at the time, did not have a clergy person to be a part of the delegation. They had like journalists, they had diplomats, former diplomats, they had people who, international nonprofits and non-government organizations, but they said that this matter was such that they didn't just need more press or more policy or economic scholars. They needed people who had experience with bringing moral clarity to this issue. So I was invited, and I graciously accepted. And as I got to Cuba, and at the time they were saying that, because a few days earlier before my trip, your president basically says he's going to take over Cuba. Can you imagine me having a conversation with my wife and my kids saying, I'm about to go to Cuba? My parents, I'm about to go to Cuba. Church, I'm about to go to Cuba. And they're seeing the president on the TV saying that I'm just going to take over Cuba. And having warships, 100 yards, not miles, 100 yards off of the coast of Cuba. I've gone to a few places in my life, but I have never gone to a country, no place, where American warships were facing with bomber jets on the ship, that at any given moment, with this temperamental, petulant, immature, narcissist child in the White, at any moment, he wants to change the world's attention. He changed the world's attention from the Epstein files and start this war in Iran, right? And so anything to change the and the Iran war has gone terribly in his interest. It's been an embarrassment. So we were all thinking at any moment to change the narrative, to change the attention span, because Americans have a very short attention span, that this man could, because he's already have ships out there. And Marco Rubio is in his ear every day saying he's going to bomb Cuba. So even with all of that in the background, I agreed to go. Not knowing if I was going to be able to, not knowing if I was going to even be alive to return. Right? Most folks of my generation, because of the travel ban, had not gone to Cuba. But even less have gone to Cuba when you actually have warships 100 yards away from the border of Cuba. But my faith inspired and strengthened me to go, and I went, and I minored in Spanish in college. My parents never had enough money to send me to those full immersion programs where I could just go to a Spanish-speaking country. So I had to learn just from my professors. I did pretty well. I made friends with some Spanish-speaking people at college, and so I did all right. But nothing was like going to Cuba, and everybody speaks Spanish. Everybody speaks Spanish, and because what I look like, they thought I spoke Spanish too. So they would come up to me and they would speak, Espanol, and I'm like, yeah, I'm smiling. I'm like, can you slow down? Muy despacio. Too rápido, too fast. But we learned each other well. And I had learned that the source that I had been relying on for 43 years was grossly incorrect. In fact, it is immoral how America depicts Cuba. So just give you a brief synopsis of my trip. The delegation I was a part of met with the president of Cuba. And the president of Cuba was only supposed to take 30 minutes. Because of his passion, it took over 2.5 hours. He met with us, in our delegation. And in that meeting, he shared how, okay, Mr. President, if you, and I'm paraphrasing, disagree with our economic system, right? If you think we are a bunch of idiots, right? He said, being stupid is not a reason to go to war. Just let us be stupid, right? Just let us be stupid and suffer in our stupidity. You don't bomb folks that stupid. Otherwise, we would have bombed a whole lot of other places in America. I'm from Alabama. We would have bombed them a long time ago. If being stupid is the only requirement of being bombed, it's a whole lot of places that I can name that should be bombed then. As Forrest Gump would say, stupid is, stupid does. Anyway, it's too young. I know y'all too young to know who Forrest Gump is. But so that was one portion of it. So and there's this notion that America does not like communist nations. That's what we were taught in school. But we got a president, right, who's like best friends. And my friend Jonathan Jackson, Representative Jackson, says even better. He's best friends with a communist president, Vladimir Putin. Our number one trading partner is a communist nation called China. So if being communist is the reason of not being friends or to bombing somebody, we got a whole lot of other communist nations that have a lot more power and influence than Cuba that could be high up on that list. But we know that's not the reason why he's threatening, and he has been threatening to bomb Cuba. We know, I learned, you all already knew and know, that the main animus for the hatred toward Cuba is because of who Fidel Castro defeated. And I believe it's 1957 and 1967, whenever they gained independence from Batista. And when Castro got into power, there were only 3 or so hospitals in the whole country. Literacy rate was like 1 in 10. Very illiterate. Poverty was even higher, right? The Batista regime really held Cuba as a bastion for the oligarchs and the mafia in America. You all seen Godfathers? You know that scene? I literally passed by the hotel where they had this scene. That's what Cuba was before Fidel. And after Fidel got into power, in 1 year, the literacy rate went from 10% to 90%. In 1 year. They could teach America a thing or two. They had this program where the children teach the parents. public schools were all free. Now Fidel took their facilities. He took a lot of that stuff in order to train and teach the people. And when he took that stuff, they went to the closest place in America they could, Miami. And they have been hating Cuba ever since. And one of the families that lived had a child whose name was Marco Rubio. And he grew up hating Cuba. Never even have gone to mainland Cuba. Only going to Guantanamo Bay, which has I think 100-year lease to America. America leases it from Cuba. He's only gone to Guantanamo Bay, where America terrorizes and tortures people across the world. Human rights violations out the wazoo, where we waterboarded soldiers. That's a human rights and criminal act by itself, right? But he's never gone to Havana. I can proudly say I have gone to Havana more than Marco Rubio. And I went a whole one time and plan to go back. And so how can you talk about a place that you claim to be from, but you've never been there? Because you don't love it. They don't love Cuba. They love the money they make from Cuba. They don't miss Cuba. They miss the wealth they exploited from Cuba. And you have to go there to realize that in spite of all of the madness, I went to hospitals, I went to the medical school where Cuba, this so-called third world nation, has some of the best doctors that they send throughout the world. Like Cuba, their medical school is free. Now, medical school, if you know anything, is probably one of the most expensive forms of education that there is. Ask a student at Johns Hopkins, right? And the good part about Cuban medical school, because of all these embargoes now and trade policies for centuries, 60 years pretty much, they've had to learn how to get by with less. So what that means is, whereas the distinction in America, well, really, we have a managed care system where we don't really cure you. We just treat you while you're sick. We manage your care while you're dying, right? Because we have the medicine to help manage your care. You can live a comfortable life in America, but be dying. I just said something. You can live a comfortable life with a terrible disease, but you're still dying. America's medical system, and I'm here, been here for 43 years, all my life, we specialize in managed care. We prescribe drugs not to cure or eliminate, we prescribe drugs to manage. And managed care is the most lucrative form. $1 trillion industry of not curable, not preventive, but managed care. In Cuba, in their med schools, they specialize in preventative care. They don't have the resources. They don't have the prescription drugs because the pharmaceutical companies won't send drugs to Cuba. But it's a blessing in disguise. So in Cuba, their doctors are trained to teach their patients how to prevent arthritis, how to prevent diabetes, how to prevent high blood pressure. In America, you were taught how to manage it. To take these pills. You still got diabetes. You still got arthritis. We call it Arthur in the South, and Debbie. Diabetes, Debbie, and arthritis is Arthur. We shorten everything. But you still have it. In Cuba, they teach their doctors how to prevent it. And Cuban doctors have been sent all over the world. It's one of their largest exports, next to their delicious coffee. And I'm not even a coffee drinker. But their coffee doesn't need any cream, any sugar. I've never drunk coffee straight until I went to Cuba. It is delectable. And so one of the things that Fidel did, this horrible man, they call this monster, right? He's a monster. He's a monster. He's a monster. He would send doctors across the world to nations, mainly African nations. And guess what? Didn't charge the nations a dime. To this day, they take medical students from across the world, even America. I thought about taking the MCAT. Because if you can get in, it's free. Free medical school is worth its weight in gold. And the type of doctor you will become, you will go far and head and shoulders above any American trained doctor. Because all our doctors know how to do is what? Manage. That's it. So you would stand out in every practice because you're not some herbalist. You have a medical degree, medical doctor, but you also know how to prevent the illness. And so he sends them throughout the world. As you saw the video, thank you for showing that. They send soldiers to help fight for independence of African nations. And one of the things I'm happy they put in here, when they send doctors, they don't try to do what America does, try to get gold, oil, or take resources, or we own a part of your land. He's not trying to send refugees there. He does it because it was the right thing to do. This terrible monster that I was talking about, 43, this terrible boogeyman, right, has been the most benevolent and never has asked for anything in return. The only folks who really don't like him, from my little small research, are the millionaires and billionaires who support our president, Donald Trump, who ran to Miami. But talking to the regular folk on the street, in spite of all the hell that America has put them through, they still love Fidel. In fact, he had to tell them, before he died, not to make any statues or images of him. There are no major statues of Fidel in any park or anywhere except the museum it's a small little bath in a corner. He told them he didn't want anything out in the main area because he did not want to be idolized. Doesn't that sound different from a guy who wants his name on everything, even the Kennedy Center? It was so refreshing to hear a leader that said, I don't want my name. There are no Fidel streets in Cuba. If he's such a dictator, a horrible narcissist, he's really doing a terrible job, right? Because he chose to do nothing in his own image. Totally different from the guy we have in the White House. And so I say all this to say, as I started, we have to learn how to consider the source. And I would tell you, don't take my word for it, right? I took America's word for it, but thank God I had an opportunity to go see for myself. And I saw a beautiful place with loving, even in the dark, because of this fuel blockade, that is an orchestrated atrocity. It is not caused by Cuba. No, don't listen to what you hear about them. It's orchestrated because they have thermonuclear plants. Thermal means it's run by heat, power, electricity. In order for them to have electricity, they need gas. America is blocking, literally, with the warship, blocking the same thing we want, thank you, Lord, the same thing we want Iran to do for us. Free the Strait of Hormuz, right? So that what? The oil tax can come through. The same thing that Trump wants Iran to do for us, he's doing to them.
Exactly right.
Be not deceived. God is not mocked.
Yeah.
You are reaping, America, what you're sowing. You want Iran to open up their strait so your oil vessels can go through and get their oil. Meanwhile, you are blocking oil from going to Cuba. Got children now missing days from school
Teachers not able to teach. Doctors are not able to practice their medicine. One of the doctors who met with our delegation was moved to tears because he was like, for the first time in my life, my profession, I'm not able to utilize my skills for my clients. It's not because I lack the will, nor the skill. We lack the resources, not because we can't afford it, because they can afford it, but because America is choosing to block them. So I'm gonna help you understand how that happened. At first, they were getting their oil from the Soviet Union. After the fall of that regime that ended, then they started getting oil from Venezuela. We know what happened to Chavez and what this president has done to the current leadership in Venezuela. And now this country, America, is blocking any other country. I mean, when I say blocking, America says, if you send oil to Cuba, we won't do business with you. Straight up. If you send oil to Cuba, we won't give you any of our business. It's almost like saying, okay, this girl broke up, or this boy broke up with this girl, and he's not dating you anymore. But he's trying to prevent any other guy from dating you too. Does that sound even close to being fair? We call that being a hater, right? America is a hater on Cuba. They don't want to date Cuba. They don't want to send oil to Cuba. But they're also keeping any other nation from sending oil to Cuba. Meanwhile, the folks who are really suffering are the folks in need. Check your sources. As the enslaved in Galveston were not given the true information, it took the actual Union soldier to go to them for them to find out they were free. It took the children in Soweto, South Africa to rebel to get the right information on education. With this issue with Cuba, and it's hard. It was hard for me to get to and from. But if you want to know what's really going on, get the right source, tap into groups like yours, and find out what is really happening. This is an orchestrated catastrophe. And anything orchestrated can be deconstructed. Anything constructed can be deconstructed. And I believe that we can deconstruct the mass misinformation that is occurring in regards to Cuba. One other thing, and I'm going to sit down. When COVID-19 hit, this country, America, who claims to be very benevolent and God-fearing, this country did not send one vaccine to Cuba. Never mind the fact that folk were dying from COVID. America had the vaccines, used our tax dollars to develop the vaccine. Didn't send one vaccine to Cuba, and in fact, kept supplies from Cuba so they could make their own vaccine. They didn't send any oxygen tanks to Cuba so they could make their own vaccines. America came up with 3 vaccines, refused to send one, and Cuba's gonna pay for them. As I said, money has never been their problem. But what did the Cuban people do? They took their little resources and their ingenuity. America created 3 vaccines. Cuba, with their brilliant doctors, even with no help from America, created 5. They created 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And guess what they did? They sent, with their benevolent selves, they sent their vaccines across the world to Africa and other places. And asked me how much they charged.
0.
As our mayor says, free 99. $0. But we're supposed to be the country that says, in God we trust. That's very benevolent. No, we're only benevolent to folks who can line our pockets. And folks who support what we want them to support. And unfortunately, save for maybe one president, America has been bipartisan in how much they disdain Cuba. One of my favorite presidents, right? John F. Kennedy, he issued the Bay of Pigs. Wanted to take out a sovereign elected leader. This has surprisingly been one of the most bipartisan issues in American history, in the modern history. Both parties disdain for Cuba. Why? Because they fled to Miami. And they have not influenced American policy. And so the enemies of Cuba are louder than the friends of Cuba. I still believe there are more friends of Cuba in America than enemies. The only difference is the enemies of Cuba are louder than the friends of Cuba.
Right.
So what I am encouraged tonight is to tell the friends of Cuba, we gotta get a megaphone. We gotta get louder. They may have the money, but we have the morality. We have what is right. And last I checked, right beats might. Every day of the week, especially when you can get it on the mic. I'm gonna say it again. Right beats might, especially when you can get it on the mic. And so what we gotta start doing is getting right on the mic to let the world know that we say no to war on Cuba. God bless you. God keep you.
Okay, so now, let's see. Now